Hey everyone, welcome to episode 1 of Palmcaster. This city is going to be based loosely off my hometown, and the reason for that is that I just thought it would be really cool to kind of recreate a version of where I live in the game. It's a kind of a desert town on the outskirts of Los Angeles in California, and yeah, here you can see I'm starting to build the roads. I kind of had a little base city, just put in nothing major, just like a neighborhood and, a few commercial buildings to start the city off. Nothing, you didn't miss much. But here I'm going to start building the freeway now. It just kind of goes on. You can see there's not much to talk about. It's just building the freeway. You just kind of wrap it around. And I raised it up because this is the way it looks like in the actual city I live in. And the city itself isn't going to be an exact replica of the city. It's not even the scale necessarily, but it's built to be a close replica. As in, I wanted to give myself artistic freedom to do what I wanted, without having to, oh no, I did that store isn't actually on that corner, or that neighborhood doesn't look really like that. I didn't want to, because that makes the game more like a chore and like work than an actual kind of fun and enjoyable experience. So for my own sanity, I chose to kind of give it a little more loosely based off of version of what my hometown of Palmdale/Lancaster looks like. So the reason I'm calling it Palmcaster is because California, or the city in California in which I live, is technically Lancaster, but Palmdale is adjacent to it, and they're very close together, and the cities kind of just blend together. So instead of having to, make both cities separately, and I thought it'd just be a fun play on words to just call it Palmcaster. I mean, anybody from the area or from, Southern California will probably recognize what I mean by that. But yeah. So now that these freeways are done, I'm gonna move on to doing some stuff, getting some building done. But before I do that, I realized that all these people are complaining about water and power, and it was getting rather annoying. So I figured I'd just go and take care of that, because I got tired of hearing them complain about water. Oh, that's right, but first I decided I wanted to change this Walmart. I didn't like the way it looked. The parking lot was not nearly as big as it should be, and the way these structures are normally built out here, at least where I live and most of the ones I've seen in California, the parking lots are huge, very, very large, open, spacious parking lots with tons of spots, more than they normally need, but just in case they need them, they have them. And then around them is normally these fast food chains, the standard typicals, what you expect. And so I decided to place a couple of those around them, but I couldn't really decide which ones I wanted to place at first. I couldn't find the one that looked quite right, or one that looked exactly like what I wanted. So I just kind of played with it for a minute and placed this Panda Express here. Didn't like the way it really turned out, so I decided to get rid of it. And you see I placed two. I didn't actually, intend on placing two. I was just getting an idea of which corner it looked better on. And I ended up not liking either of them, so I deleted them. I ended up going with, I believe, this is Del Taco here, which, turned out pretty nice. I liked the way the Del Taco looked. But I preferred the Taco Bell more because it didn't have those palm trees, and it looked more realistic for my town. There's a lot of palm trees here, but the way that one looked was just a little too nice in that corner. So I decided to move it over to this corner instead, because I liked that Del Taco a lot. I liked that Taco Bell, but I felt like they just didn't look exactly good in the place they were, so I just moved them around a little bit. Just getting this parking lot, to look more or less realistic. Laying in parking lots, nothing, too exciting. And then once I had this parking lot put together, I kind of realized that the entire town was complaining of water and power. That was getting annoying, so I got tired of seeing those little alert bubbles above each building. And so I decided to finally go and take care of that. Now, in my actual hometown, when you drive up the freeway towards Bakersfield and Northern California on the way to San Francisco, you see these giant wind turbines, and there's hundreds of them all over the mountains. And they look really cool, especially at night in real life, so I figured they'd look really cool in the game as well. So to satisfy those power needs, I decided to go with pretty much entirely wind energy to power the town, just because I thought it looked good, and it matched entirely with how the city actually looks in real life, with these giant wind turbines on the horizon there. So you see here, I'm just placing them. Nothing too amazing. They turned out looking really nice, actually, and very close to the real thing. And then next was to deal with the water. I wasn't sure if I wanted a water tower, because there are a few out here, but not as many as you'd think. But I decided against it and went with a water pump instead, just because I didn't really want to look at the water tower. I might put one in later, but for now I didn't want to deal with it. So just putting in some water and some sewage treatment. That's about it. Or I'm sorry, wastewater. Nothing too major. And there we go. All the happy buildings now. They're all glad to see their water is finally achieved. And at this point, I couldn't figure out why there were no cars on the roads, because it looked like no one was moving in. And so I checked the buildings to see if there was any residents, and the entire neighborhood was empty. So I couldn't figure out why. I thought it was the water and power at first, but once that was taken care of, I couldn't figure out why these buildings were just empty. And so I kind of got tired of, looking at empty streets, so I wanted to figure out the problem. And I realized after playing with it for a few minutes that the problem was not the zoning or anything, or the buildings themselves. It was the fact that my freeway had no off and on ramps. So I had to go and take care of that. I forgot about doing that freeway. I got distracted by the Walmart and doing the power and water. So I went over and I dealt with that real quick. Just doing basic, on-off ramps. Pretty close to life, actually. This is pretty much how the off-on ramps in this entire town look in Palmdale and Lancaster. So once I figured out the resident issue and why no one was moving in, I decided to move on and start another actual neighborhood. And yeah, here I'm just kind of laying it out and trying to figure out how I want it to look. Getting the streets just right. Playing with this idea of this cul-de-sac. I didn't know you could do this, but it turned out looking really nice in my opinion. I liked the way it looked. Besides the crosswalks in them, they look pretty much just like a real cul-de-sac would. So I liked that. And those are all over town here. Most neighborhoods have at least a few cul-de-sacs in them, if not dozens of them. So those look nice. Here I'm just zoning it, making it, get some residents to come in. And here I kind of had I didn't like the buildings that were popping up at all. They didn't look true to life. They didn't even look believable in my opinion. And I didn't like all those lime green trees. I like a few of them. Those trees aren't bad looking in my opinion, but having 30 of them in a row just didn't look right to me. I didn't like the way it was turning out. So I kind of fought with these buildings here a little bit until I eventually decided on kind of just deleting a few of them and placing some myself later on. But I put in this little residential slash apartment complex. These are pretty common out here, little 2-story apartment, complexes full of just, low-income apartments usually. They're not the nicest, so these looked perfect. They looked really realistic, and I like the way they fit on that corner. They really kind of completed that corner there. So here I'm just kind of playing with, designing them, getting some trees in. Trying to get the neighborhood to look a little more realistic and believable. And then in the middle of all that, a fire broke out. So I had to go and place a fire station and take care of that. And then once I placed that fire station, I realized I'm going to have the other amenities too before they freak out and get upset that I don't have them. So I had to go and build the police station and just a couple things. A garbage. I eventually had to put a garbage incinerator in and a health clinic just to keep them happy. I'm probably not going to keep any of the locations I put this stuff, but this is just for now, just to keep the city happy and running. Eventually I'll put them in the place I actually want them to be. But I thought this worked for now, so, just to make sure things aren't, going haywire while I'm trying to build. I guess I should probably put in some basic amenities, right? And then once all those were placed, I realized I wanted to put a little parking little area here. I figured that apartment complex was pretty believable, but it was missing one crucial thing, which you always find, and that's one of these kind of side or behind parking lots. They're always accompanying these types of apartment buildings. They'll often have, the residents need to park somewhere, so I wanted to build one of those there. And I decided against putting one on this side. I almost did it, and I just didn't like how it looked. So I removed it later on, and just playing with how I want this to look and trying to get it both, aesthetically pleasing to the eye as well as believable. That's kind of my main goal here, is trying to make this look as believable as possible while also looking good. And trying to stay true to life. I'm trying to make this look as much like Palmdale and Lancaster as possible without making it exact. Because I kind of want to have some fun with it, like I was saying earlier. I don't want it to be an exact replica, but just, true to, I guess you could say, in the spirit of the cities, not exactly the cities themselves. So here I'm just placing some trees now, making the neighborhoods a little more, beautified. That's right, I finally just placed the police station now. And here we can see all the police now are coming to deal with all the crime breaking out in our apartment complexes. So it's pretty realistic in that sense as well. We've got, a lot of crime and things like that in the appropriate areas. But now the police station's there. And it's turning out really nice. It looks beautiful in my opinion. I like the way this is turning out a lot. It's turning out better than I actually thought it would so far. And so here I finally got around to kind of fixing this neighborhood a little bit. Like I said earlier, I didn't like the way it looked. It didn't look too realistic. So I came in and deleted some of the grown houses and placed my own, ones that are much more, you know, just believable in my opinion. They turned out real nice, I think. I like this little corner a lot now here by the Walmart. I think it's a great, you know, realistic kind of corner. That could be any corner in Palmdale or Lancaster, really. It looks very, you know, close to the real deal. And I liked that. And it was aesthetically pleasing to look at. So that's kind of what those are my two most important kind of things in this game right now. Are trying to keep it both believable, but also, you know, good to look at. I don't want to sacrifice good to look at for, you know, making it believable. If something doesn't look good, I'm not going to keep it in the game. Just because I want it to look as good as possible. So even if it's entirely true to life for one or two things, I'm going to try and make sure that I'm going to sacrifice the true to life over making it look good. Because I want it to look good. You know, that's the whole point of the game, is I want the city to look really, really nice eventually. So, and here, oh yeah, here I'm finally getting around to building the garbage dump slash incinerator, because they were complaining about too much garbage in the streets. I don't blame them. I would too. So started dealing with that. And then came back here. Look at all those garbage trucks go. There's tons of them. Literally dozens of garbage trucks just barreling down the road to go pick up all that garbage that's been sitting there for probably months. Sorry, citizens. I forgot to build you a garbage dump. My bad. So anyways, now that that's taken care of, I wanted to get back to doing some, you know, some stuff and just going back to fixing this neighborhood again. Nothing too major. Just kind of playing with what looks right, what I like. And for some reason my houses disappeared here. They looked really nice and then they suddenly were just gone. I couldn't figure out why, but it didn't bother me too much. I just kind of, you know, replaced them. Not too much work. But it was a mild confusion, if nothing else, as to why that happened. So once I had those houses placed, I decided to start expanding a little bit and build a second neighborhood. So I expanded right across the street from the other one. Curved it around here. Nothing too, you know, exciting, just very normal, basic, typical. Started zoning it, did the same thing as last time, and setting it up for growable residential streets. But once they started growing, I realized I really didn't like what I was seeing. They just didn't, again, they didn't look believable to me, and I didn't like how it looked. It didn't look at all like how the neighborhoods here look, so I was kind of upset with that and decided to go back and delete them. You can see I'm just dezoning them, deleting the buildings. Here I was trying to find a good building or residential house to kind of plop all along this street here, because it's very common in this part of California to see this all over in neighborhoods. They'll take a certain building design or house design and just duplicate it across entire streets. And it can look kind of boring sometimes, but it also looks really nice in the right setting. And here it looked really good. It really matched how these neighborhoods are really built in real life, with just repeating patterns of the same kind of alternating house designs. And so I was just trying to get that right here. So I expanded that all the way down the street here. I started with this one larger house, but it was a little too big for the type of neighborhoods you see out here usually. That'd be more like a upper class kind of high-end neighborhood, and that's not really what we're building here. We're building a kind of middle income to lower income neighborhood. So I deleted the larger building and replaced it with this slightly smaller two-story, which looked exactly like a lot of neighborhoods here. Actually, worked out perfectly, and I liked it a lot. So I extended them down the street, and then started playing with it, trying to see what else I could do to that to make it look right. And I realized that pretty soon, with all these residential houses now going in, they're going to want a school. Because if you don't, then they get upset eventually. So I decided where I wanted to place the school. And I placed it there at first, but I just didn't like the way it looked. It didn't look right. So I deleted it and placed it on this road instead. But even then, it was a little too close to the road for just to look right. So I deleted it again, placed it further back in the neighborhood, and it looked perfect after that. And that's a lot of times how you find schools out here, especially in elementary or middle schools, is they'll be kind of placed back away from the main avenue in the neighborhoods themselves. And a lot of times there'll be like an empty field between them and the road, which will eventually probably be built upon, as some kind of commercial parking area, or, some kind of commercial structure or area. So that turned out nice. And now I'm just gonna kind of beautify the neighborhood a little bit. Nothing much to tell you. So I'll kind of just let this play and let you watch as I, kind of make the neighborhood, give it a little more detail. Nothing too special. Oh, before I do that though, I had to put in a a crematorium. There was a bunch of, apparently people were dying on the other side of the map, and I didn't realize it. And they had nowhere to put their dead, so I had to put this little, morgue / crematorium in over here. And once that was put in, then I was good to go and start finishing up the rest of the neighborhoods and just kind of beautifying them, making them look, good. So, yeah, I'll let the music play and you can kind of just watch me finish up these neighborhoods.